Hello and welcome to Hawkeye Nation. This is HawkCast, your Iowa football, basketball, and recruiting podcast brought to you by Go Iowa Awesome and Rivals.com. I'm your recruiting analyst and host, Eliot Clough, at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by Adam Jacoby, publisher of the site, soon Ross Binder, managing editor of the site as well, and new color analyst for Iowa Hawkeye Football Radio, Pat Angerer. Very excited and grateful to have Pat on today. Pat, again, I mean, we said it before we started recording, but we really appreciate you hopping on.
Hey, thank you guys for having me. It's as we talked, it's been a wild week, but it's been exciting, and I'm looking forward to getting rolling.
And before we get started too much with Pat, make sure that you subscribe wherever you're at. YouTube, drop a like, drop a comment. Apple Podcast, Spotify, do the same thing. So Pat, joining us here, how long have you been thinking about broadcasting? Because you've been out of football for a little while. You're back in Bettendorf. Like how did this, I guess, how did this come together? Is this something that you really thought was on your radar coming out of football?
Yeah, I've probably been thinking about it for maybe about a month and a half. They reached out, and initially they were just reaching out to 10 to 15 guys to kind of gauge interest. Um, and yeah, I'd asked my wife, and I was like, I don't know, maybe. She was like, yeah, absolutely. I want you out of the house and away from me as much as possible. So I called back. I'm like, yeah, I'm all in. And then we did it was a couple interviews. And then we ended up having, I think there were four finalists. And then we did the game simulation. And that's really when, to me, it was like, well, this is a lot of fun, and a lot of it due to the fact that Gary's so great to work with, and he does the bulk of the work, and he's such a professional and such a pro. But it was exciting, and it was fun, and it was great to be around the game again and talking football and being around a good guy, somebody that you love and respect and have listened to for so many years. So that's really when, about a month and a half is about as much as I've been thinking about being a podcaster.
It's interesting that you mentioned Gary. At the funeral for Jim Zabel, Ed Podolak mentioned that Zabel had been pretty instrumental in sort of the pitch to get Ed on board, and mentioned that it was going to be like, the best ride of his life, basically. How has that relationship with Gary gone, so early in this process? And was he sort of involved in the pitch to you, or did you even need one?
I called him right after Learfield had reached out. And I obviously have known Gary for a long time, and he's been really good to me. And he's just so stoic and so smart, and he's got the voice of an angel. And he's just, I could sit there and listen to him talk all the time, but just asking him questions, and he's so open. And I'm sure, I mean, gosh, he's probably forgotten more about this job than I even know. So I'm going to definitely be leaning heavily on him. This first week is a little bit crazy, and luckily I get to see him tomorrow at the Hawkeye Properties golf outing, so I'll be able to chat with him, because I'm sure there's going to be questions that come up probably daily that I'm like, oh, I never thought of this, and what do you think, Gary? And I'm sure it was a tough decision for him, and I know there was a committee, and I'm sure that he was involved because he's the one that had to work with, has to work with my ugly butt, but. I'm sure it was probably hard for him because he's got a relationship with everybody, and he's got a relationship with all the people that were involved. Um, and I think that says a lot about him, and that says a lot about why he's really good at his job, because he loves and he cares for all the people that he's talking about. And that's something that I would like to do. And I would like the players to know that, hey, you can come talk to me. Like I'm your friend, I'm your mentor, and I want to tell your story the right way, and I want to know you, so that when you do something great, I'm excited about it even more than somebody that doesn't know you. And when something goes wrong, which it will, I messed up a million times every single game, and be a lot easier to talk about that when you really know the kids and you understand what they've gone through and the hurdles that they've overcome to get to that point.
Hey, Pat, this is Ross Binder. I'm the managing editor here at the site, and really happy
What's
to
going
talk
on,
to you.
Ross?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm jealous of your hair.
Thank you, I think. I'll take that. I'm going to take that as a compliment for sure. So, um, have you been thinking about broadcasting for a while, or was this something that kind of the opportunity came up and you're like, wow, this sounds really great, and you just kind of pursued it from there?
Yeah, it really the opportunity came up and just kind of pursued it. And yeah, basically about a month and a half is all I've been thinking about it. And, never in a million. First of all, I work at a credit union. Mississippi Valley Credit Union, got to put that as a plug. But I work here, and now I'm on the radio, which never in a million years did I think that would be my life. Like, weird, just a strange thing. I think I probably won like most likely to fail out of high school or something. And, when you do the superlatives at the end of the year, and now I'm working at a credit union and on the radio. But no, it was something that it came up and was able to, go through the process, and it became something that was a dream that I didn't even know that I had.
Was it so kind of, sorry, Eliot, you can ask your question in just a minute. I just wanted to follow up there. Like, so when you were in the process, like, was there kind of a moment when you thought like, man, this actually sounds like a pretty interesting job or something that I'd really like to do?
So it was really when I was sitting there next to Dolphin. We were going back and forth for maybe 10 minutes, and I was like, you know what, this is pretty cool, and this would be a huge opportunity for me, and it would be a ton of fun. And so when I left that simulation, I was happy with how it went. I was very content with it. So whichever way it went, whether they picked James or Mitch or Nate, I would have been completely happy with it because I felt like things went well, and I was just honestly happy and humbled and excited to even be considered.
So my question here, Pat, it's kind of a question. It's also kind of not, but like, I don't think Adam or Russ, I don't know if you guys have any experience in either radio or like play-by-play broadcasting on TV or anything, but Pat, like, isn't it fun as hell? Like, isn't it just fun? I imagine it was just one of those things where you just, you did it once, and obviously you're a lover of football playing for so long, but then being able to do it, I just imagine it was like almost like a plug and play. You mentioned it being like a month and a half, but just popping in there with Gary, who you've known for so long, with Dolph, and just doing a job that's really fun. Like, is it almost that simple? Like, and the game of football too, right?
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because when they first showed us, when they first sent the game over to us, I turned the TV on, I watched the game, and then I listened to Ed and Dolph talk. I had it timed up perfectly, and I wrote down what I was going to say, and then I recorded myself and all that, and I did not sound like me. I sounded just fake and made up, and I was 100% completely overthinking it. And how you talk about just going in there and having fun, that's what I did in the simulation. And my fear when I was listening to myself talk, I'm like, if they pick me and I put on this fake persona of me, then I'm going to have to act 13 weeks out of the year. And to me, that's not genuine. That's not me. That's not real. The fans would totally eat that apart. And it would put a lot of stress on me, like trying to act like something that I'm not. And it was I think it was Greg Dwyer from Dwyer and Michaels here in the Quad Cities. His son did play-by-play, and Greg's been a good friend to me. They've been great to me over the years, and so I called him to kind of get some pointers and all that stuff because I know nothing. And at the end of the day, it's be yourself, be real. People are either going to love it or hate it, and if they don't like it, well, at least you can say you gave it a shot and you were really you. And that's really what I took in. So I scratched all the hours and all the stuff that I had put in. I scratched all that and just went in there and was able to be myself. And fortunately it worked. And hopefully it works this year.
To re-interject here, sorry, Adam, I just want to follow up on one of the questions we actually planned on instead of isn't it fun as hell? When talking about going in and just being yourself, did you kind of feel that chemistry with Dolph when you were doing that? Was it just kind of back and forth and like you said, like we've said, having fun and it was just smooth? Or is this something that, I mean, obviously it's something you got to work on, right? Like he and Ed had been doing it, Podolak had been doing it for so long together, but is that something that just kind of clicked? Is that something that you feel is a work in progress? I guess, how are you feeling about that right now?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it felt smooth. But obviously, I don't know. You look at Dolph, and I think I could have put my dog or my 7-year-old daughter up there, or my son's up there, and it would have been just as fine too. The guy's a professional. But it felt good and it felt great and it was fun. We were laughing, having a good time. Obviously, we won that game, so that was even more fun. But yeah, yeah, I guess I don't know where I was necessarily going with that, but Dolph's unreal, and I'm looking forward to having a good time with him, and hopefully the bringing the fans along. And I mean, that's a huge opportunity too. Like I don't take that lightly. Like that's super important. So many people have reached out to me, during this process and all this, and I want to do right by the fans. I want to do right by the people, and also what I want to do right by is Ed and Dolph. Dolph's been around this program for a long time, and as Ed has as well too. And I got some big shoes to fill, and I definitely am going to take it extremely seriously, and hopefully do a good job and do everybody justice.
So on that note, you talked about, I mean, really just sort of having to be yourself, which is, obviously clearly going to be great advice. So we've got a question here from one of our premium users, Fraser Sose, which ace is on the name there. But the one of the things that he wanted to know was, when there's going to be plays that don't go well on the field, are you, especially as a former player and stepping into a role that is, sort of as much cheerleading as it is analysis, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but is there any pressure that you're going to feel or that you think you might feel about, sort of putting a positive spin on something that might not go well on the field? Or is it just like, call it as you see it 100% of the time?
For me, I think being able to know why it failed helps. I mean, that's huge. Try to explain, why it happened. I'm never going to call it a kid. I'm not going to call it a kid by his name. That's unfair. I mean, gosh, I messed up so many times as a football player and as a person, and I mess up every single day. So I that's something that I will definitely not do. I'm not going to call out a kid by name or anything like that, because I know what these kids have been through. I know what it's taken to even just get to that Saturday, to get to the game. But yeah, having to be able to tell them why it went wrong, how it went wrong, what they were looking for, what they were trying to accomplish out of that play, I think is huge and very important.
Along those same lines, Pat, were you're a former defensive player, which honestly is a little bit different for a lot of, broadcast duos in football. There's a lot of offensive guys calling games. So are you excited to kind of, maybe give the defense a little more time when you're calling games, or are you just going to kind of, play it by ear with what the game presents itself, I guess? But, you do have that defensive expertise, obviously. So.
Well, yeah, I mean, Iowa defense is always super exciting to talk about, and I'm very excited to watch Nick Jackson and Jay Higgins again this year. Those guys are studs, and got a chance to meet them last week at a career night that I just left super impressed with every single kid. It was third and fourth year players, and they were way more mature and way more well behaved than our group of just hellions when we were there. But yeah. But I've also, I've analyzed and studied offenses my whole career. In college I called the plays. In the NFL I called the plays. I got everybody lined up. I checked on motions. Football is a very easy sport that's complicated by men, and in youth sports it's very complicated by dads who kind of ruin things.
So, in that vein, I think I saw Dolph said something about wanting to add a former defensive player from the Kirk era. Did he talk to you like about why that mold was kind of what he wanted, or is that something where you look at it and you see it as an opportunity because the defense hasn't really changed at Iowa, and you can really pinpoint some of the things that assignments and where certain guys were supposed to be or where they were, and that's why the play was so good? Like, does that make sense?
No, for sure. And I think, his thing is Iowa football or Iowa defense has been good for so many years. And I want to bring a guy into the booth that understands that. Not that Ed didn't, but, I was a part of it. And honestly, realistically, I think the reason why he wanted a defensive guy, because he wanted somebody that was uglier than him. And, you had me and Mitch, who aren't good looking dudes. I mean, you just asked our wives. I don't know why they're with us, but I think that's probably his internal voice saying that. But Yeah, it's Iowa defense is always going to be Iowa defense. We're going to stop the run. We're going to run. We're going to run the ball. We're going to play hard. We're going to be tough. We're going to fight you. I mean, that's what I see every time I watch it.
So you were, let me see if I can get the timing right. You were a Norm Parker guy, not a Phil Parker guy, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Coach Norm Parker, he was my DC, and Phil was the defensive backs coach.
And what was that like to have somebody with that? I mean, they almost couldn't be more diametrically opposed in terms of like personality, but like Norm was famous for the Normisms. Norm was, his own special sort of personality. Is that something that you still carry with you? Like, did you carry it through to the NFL? And like, are you still a Norm Parker guy in the booth today?
A lot of times because I got to get up and I got to work out, otherwise I'm kind of an a-hole. So I've got to get up and work out. When the alarm goes off, there's sometimes that I just want to say no. I just want to just not do it. And I think of Norm's saying is men do it, or boys do what they want to do, men do what they have to do. And that's literally something that I probably think about every single day of my life.
Speaking of, Kirk and just he's been there for so many years. How do you think he's changed in the time since you were a player until now, or has he changed very much, really?
Well, I think the best thing, and obviously just being a part of the program again and being around the kids is he hasn't changed. He's still instilling the same things in these kids that are playing for him that he instilled in us when we were playing. And that's huge. It's so huge when you go into the program and you know that these kids have gone through the same things that you've gone through. They know that what they're being taught. How they're going to handle things, and that's huge, man. That's like the accountability, the toughness, the physicalness, the being smart. Now I wasn't smart, but I had all the other stuff at times. But like that's Iowa football, and that's why I think everybody loves Iowa football, because those attributes are also Iowans. And I grew up at Bettendorf, went to a program that was very similar to Iowa as far as the accountability aspect, and that's huge, man. That's huge for growth. That's huge for success, and that's why Iowa was one of the winningest programs in the country year in and year out.
So this question just kind of popped up to me, Pat, just now, thinking about the state of college football and how different it is now than it was 15 years ago when you were playing. I guess I'm just curious as to it's quite a question, right? Like the landscape of college football. What do you think about it? Well, that, but also I feel like there is a strong missed opportunity with like Kool-Aid and being the Kool-Aid man and running through a wall in terms of an NIL deal that you could have had when you were in college football. How upset are you about that, one? And two, like, I guess, what do you think about the current state of things? Do you think college football is moving in like a positive direction? I guess I'm just curious as to your thoughts on the state of things, in the sport and college sports.
Yeah, as far as my missed opportunities, honestly, I probably wouldn't even have taken the time to even do any of that stuff, especially in my last couple of years. I was so focused on Iowa football and trying to be a better person and trying to be a better player. And I probably wouldn't have had any opportunities prior to that because I hadn't earned it yet. So I don't know if I would have taken advantage of it, maybe due to laziness or due to I just want to be left alone. Who knows? But it would have been nice to have a couple extra bucks, in the bank account. That would have been very nice. But then, you look at my transition into broadcasting now. Like now, all those opportunities are there. So it's kind of, now they're there now for me. So, and two, I had those opportunities in the NFL as well when I was playing, and I didn't really take advantage of them that much. I think one of the things that my agent told me is if you do something back home, you do it for free. And that's something that I always did. And I respected that because his thing was those people liked you before you were anything. And, I always think about that. And I think that's a great thing to think about. And that's kind of how I did things when I was playing. the landscape obviously has definitely changed. And I think from the outside perspective, and I don't really know a lot of kind of the ins and outs of it. I have really no idea. At times it does seem like the Wild West, right? Like it's recruiting's it's definitely a lot different. It's a lot more competitive, and it was really competitive before. So and I don't know whether it's going the right direction or the wrong direction, or I have no idea. I haven't put in a lot of thought into it. But it will be interesting to see what changes are going to be made, or if there's going to be a salary cap, or what's going to happen. I would suspect that there probably would be, to kind of even the playing fields. But the one thing that I do know is that whichever route it goes, the Iowa program is going to do things the right way, just like they've always done.
Yeah, they sort of don't need to do it the wrong way, which is kind of nice. So
right.
Going back to your pro career, and this is another reader question. This one's coming from Waterloo Chaz, so shout out to Chaz. What were some of your favorite ways of being a Colt in your pro career? And then do they compare to your favorite memories of being a Hawkeye? Is it just different, or sort of walk us through that?
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's definitely more of a business. But there's a lot of guys that I still talk to and still, communicate with and still love. And, we went through a lot together, so it's hard you're not really going to break that bond. Memories wise, yeah, I would say, my first snap, my first preseason game was a sack, and I was extremely nervous going in there. And all the vets are, they're like, it's preseason, don't worry about it. I'm like, this is the most important day of my life, And I, they called a blitz, and I ran in there and sacked. I think it was Carr. It was the older Carr. We're playing the 49ers, and that was just like, I made it. Like, I'm the greatest player in the world, for those 2 seconds. And then later on that year, so I was very fortunate. So when I got drafted, Gary Brackett was the starting middle linebacker. And I think he at that time, he was in his 6th or 7th year. And I was really nervous because you hear about all these rookie hazing and all this stuff. And I was nervous that was going to happen. Not that I wouldn't have dealt with it, but it was just like, I just don't want to deal with this other stuff. I don't want anybody to look at me. I just want to go under the radar and do my job and have success. And, from the first day I stepped on in the building, his words to me were, "Hey, I'm going to do whatever I can to help you. Like, I understand why you're here. You're eventually here because you're here because you're eventually going to take my job. Like, I get it. I'm not dumb, but I want to make sure that the program is better when I'm gone, because I'm gonna do whatever I can to help you out." Like, that was just huge for me. That was huge. As a young guy who didn't know anything, that was a little bit terrified, like that was very important to me. And he did that. He was very, very much a part of me and Cavell Connor's careers. He was huge. Very lucky to have him and have a leader like that. And he actually got hurt. I want to say it was like week 6 or week 5, and I had to start. And we played up in Washington, and Donovan McNabb was the quarterback at that time, and had a good game. I think I had a sack and 12 tackles or something like that, and we won. It went really well. And then that following meeting, they said, "Hey, you're the first one here at workouts. You're the last one to leave. You're doing a great job. We trust you. You're watching film. You're doing everything right. You're going to be starting at Sam linebacker the rest of the year," which was cool because first of all, I've never played Sam linebacker. I'm probably the shortest Sam linebacker in the history of the NFL. So that was obviously, there was a lot of learning, but it was a lot of fun to be able to just go in right away and play and contribute, because that's really what you want to do at a young age. You want to earn the veterans' respect, and you want to go out there and show what you're made of. And, my second year had a ton of tackles, but we were also 2-14. I think we lost 13 games in a row. And that was really tough. That was tough. There was one game that year we played the Steelers, and there were some games where we got beat pretty bad, but there were a lot of games that was just kind of a toss-up. It was a play here and there. And it was tough to go through. But there's one, we were playing the Steelers. I think I had 20 tackles in that game, or 21 or something like that. And that was cool. I remember halfway through the season, McAfee being like, "Hey, you're playing on every special team and you're starting middle linebacker. what are you doing? Like, what? Nobody does that. You probably shouldn't be doing that. And I'm like, I don't know. I'm just going wherever they told me to go. I'm not going to say anything. Then I think I was off like kickoff or something, or punt return or something like that after that. But and then, I had some struggles after that year because we were on the field a lot. There's a reason why I had a lot of tackles, because we were on the field literally the whole game, which is not good on your body, but it's also good on your tackle stats. I ended up having surgery that off season. And then the next year I had the first game of the first preseason game. I broke my foot, tried to come back early, didn't heal. So I played the rest of the season with a broken foot. Then I think I had 3 more surgeries that off season, and then just the surgeries just kept adding up, and was able to get healthy enough to play my 4th year. But I had to end up, I think, on IR that year toward the end of the season. And so that was really, like, mentally, like, that was really hard on me, like really hard. Like I was ready. I was ready physically to probably be done playing, but mentally I wasn't. And obviously coming off, really good year, my 2nd year, like, all right, well, I'm going to go in and I'm going to get paid, and we're going to do awesome, and it's going to be great. And it actually went the complete opposite route. So mentally for me, that was about as tough and as low as probably I've ever been. And luckily my wife's been with me since I was 16. She had a car and a cell phone. So I was like, I got to ask her out. She's awesome. She lived in the rich part of the Quad Cities. And luckily she had a lapse in judgment. She said yes. So I'm sure she regrets it every single day. Yeah, and I probably had 10 to 13 surgeries probably since my 2nd or 3rd year in the league. And it's a lonely road when you're going through the rehab process, because you're not a part of the team. You're sitting there hanging out with the trainers. You're not letting out that aggression that you're used to, and you see your buddies out there competing, and you do get a little bit envious, and you do get a little bit jealous, and getting over that. And it took me some time, even after I was done playing. Like, it took me some time to get over that, because I wasn't ready to be done. And then being done, like, that was a hard thing for me too. Your whole life, it's structured. You're a part of a culture. You're being told what to do. You're being told even when to go to the bathroom, to watch this film, tackle this guy, to lift this weight. And you're part of a culture, and you have purpose. And then all of a sudden you're done, and you're like, what in the heck am I doing with my life? And physically or mentally, like, you still think you can do it. And you watch guys on TV, and you're like, oh, I'm better than that guy. I can do this. And then you go and try to get the mail, and you crap your pants. Like, it's a weird transition. So it took me some time to kind of get over that. And luckily I checked my ego, and was able to move on from that. But, I look at, I guess, the big difference between college and the NFL. And I think if I could go back, and if I had to pick, like, you've got to go back and you've got to play for the Colts, you got to play for Iowa. Like, I'm choosing Iowa every second of every day. And the main thing is because, the NFL, it's a business, and you're around good people, you're around people that care for you. But they're always looking for, the younger, cheaper, faster guy to take your job. Now in college, they love you and they want you there, and they're going to be hard on you. They're going to hold you accountable. They're going to coach you because they want you to do well. And you're a part of, you're with guys from freshman year until senior year. As opposed to the NFL, it's at times it's a revolving door, and as soon as you become good friends with somebody, they're out the door, they're on a plane heading back home.
It's funny you mentioned that sort of choice, the hypothetical choice between college and pro, because when Luke Lachey was weighing his decision to come back, his dad, Jim Lachey, who had also been in the NFL, said that if he got to play one more game, he was going to choose college over pro every single time. That really seems remarkable to me, especially when we talk about these athletes in ways that are like, well, what's going to get the most money in their pocket, right? Like what's going to be the most glory. And it seems like from the athlete perspective, the thought process is markedly different than what they sort of get credit for. Does that feel accurate to you?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like it was like college it's pure, and you're playing with your buddies, and you're fighting, and everything you get is earned. It's all earned, and I love that. I love that about it. Um, when the money gets involved, it obviously it makes things a little bit different. I mean, that's the truth. NFL, it's I loved it. I love my teammates. I love the Colts organization. Like, everybody was just tremendous to me. I spent a lot of time in the training room, and they were great. But when it becomes a business, it's definitely not as fun, and it's definitely not as pure. I don't even know if I answered that question.
No, that was exactly what I was thinking. So great, thank you.
So, just speaking about your Colts experience for one more question. So your career overlapped there with Bob Sanders and Dallas Clark a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Do you have any good stories about Bob or Dallas from your time there? Or?
Yeah, actually, being in Indy, I think Bob, Dallas, Seth Olson, AJ Eads, Mitch King, like all those guys were there at times when I was there. I don't think I ever heard Bob talk ever, and I don't think I ever heard Dallas not talk. So just two very different guys.
All right. That's great. Pat, we'll revert here just to the status of things in Iowa City right now, and what you're going to be calling, and then we can get you out of here. But just to look at the linebacker group, you mentioned Jay Higgins and Nick Jackson, two of the best linebackers in the country. Like, and not only that, like that linebacker group, that room as a whole is just stacked, and it's only going to stay that way. Like with this 24 class and the 25 guys they're bringing in. Like, I guess let's start with Jay and Nick. Like, what do you see them do and do so well that, I mean, especially Jay coming essentially off the bench. He was playing that Leo spot. Now he's that starting Mike. But to just step in and play at such a high level, and then Nick Jackson, who's got this extra year and probably going to be the all-time leader in tackles. Like, what have you seen from them in your time watching them play together, and what makes them so elite?
Yeah, I mean, they have every attribute that a great linebacker has. And it sounds kind of cliche and very simple. And like I said, football is a simple game. Both of those guys compete every single play, and they are constantly fighting and scratching and clawing and running the ball. Like, that's huge. I think probably half the tackles that I made in my career were probably just from running to the ball. And a lot of people, they'll give up on plays, and so and so will get them. Like, these dudes don't give up. And it's going back to watching that Michigan State game. They both ran to the ball. They fought over things. They caused that fumble there toward the end of that fourth quarter that sealed the deal for us. And two, getting to know Jay, and I only talked to him for a little bit, but he's a quality individual. Like, he is a really good kid. Way better of a kid than I was. Like, just squared away, just a nice guy, big, tall. Like, dude, I was very impressed by the literally 30-second conversation that we had. And then, I'm excited about too is 43 is making a comeback in the linebacker room. I'm looking forward to watching him run around.
I think you'll be very happy talking with Nick Jackson too, talking about quality individuals. That guy is stand up all the way. Again, we're going to try to get you back to the real world and all that pretty quick. But there's one more thing that I would be remiss if I didn't mention. And that is, unless there's something we don't know about Gary or Ed or Zabel, I think you're going to be the first tag team wrestling champion in the Iowa football radio booth. Tell us a little bit about how you and the one they call Manders, sort of walk us through that little portion of your life as wrestling champions.
Yeah, what a weird time. That sometimes I forget that I'm an undefeated world tag team champion. But yeah,
are you still
so,
are you still the holder of the belt at this point, or?
well, I had, I had to give it up. I had to give it up because, I retired due to injuries, but yeah, I got to know those guys. So Merrick Brave and, obviously, Kobe Lopez or Seth Rollins, they run that gym down there, in Davenport. And, I met them with my kids at some River Bandits event, and Merrick is a Bettendorf guy, and I was just like, hey, I grew up watching wrestling. The best thing about one of the best things about having my boys is that I was able to get them back into wrestling, so I was able to relive like all my youth, and just we'd go to wrestling events all the time and have a lot of fun. And Nick had reached, or Merrick had reached out and said, hey man, you and Manders ever, if you want to do a show, have you and Manders do it. And at the time it was like, I don't know, I'd kind of taken myself a little bit too seriously. But then I was like, you know what? Heck, I might as well. Kids never saw me play, they might as well be able to see me wrestle. And so I started working down there with those guys, and it's so insane how good these dudes are, like how good they are at wrestling. And I guess I don't know anything, but like those guys. So for me, like I needed the match to be A through Z. Like this is what we're doing. This is what we're going to do next. And they're all like improving. And we wrestled Vicious and Delicious twice, and obviously beat them twice. But those guys, the Vicious and Delicious guys, were they were hilarious. Like just so much fun. Like I hadn't had that much fun in a long time doing something, and I brought my kids up there. And I think in the last match, I had these cut off shorts and my pants ripped right up right where they shouldn't rip. And just the love and the brotherhood, like being around that, like it did kind of bring me back to a locker room a little bit. It was just it was a blast, man. It was so much fun, and just so many good dudes in that sport. And yeah, I really like those guys. I miss those days. I miss my wrestling championship reign. But yeah, I figured I'd give it up and go on the radio.
Let somebody else get the title, right?
Yeah,
Share it a little bit. Well, Pat, again, we really appreciate you hopping on and taking a little bit of time today, with your busy schedule and making it work and hopping on with us.
Hey, thank you guys. Obviously, got my number, so call me whenever, man. I appreciate you.
All righty. Well, we will wrap it up here. We appreciate you tuning into this episode of HawkCast, brought to you by Iowa.rivals.com. If you're not a premium subscriber yet at Iowa.rivals.com, you can do that. Iowa.rivals.com/subscribe. We'd love to have you. You can ask questions to people like Pat when we have them on, which is obviously a blast, and we're happy we got a couple of those in. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you hit that subscribe button, drop a like, drop a comment, let us know what you're thinking about the season ahead, how excited you are to hear Pat on the radio. Also, don't forget to subscribe and leave a rate and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well. For now, I am Eliot Clough at Eliot Clough on Twitter, joined by Adam Jacoby, Ross Binder, and Pat Angerer on this episode. We will see you next time.